Okay, in this lesson, what we're going to do is try and fill in the in-between frames that we require. Traditionally, in-betweens are the type of frame that kind of fit between each of the key frames or the major frames that we have in animation. The timing that Richard Williams has adopted for his walk cycle in his book allows for two in-betweens between most of the keys that he's worked out. So this should be a relatively easy transition from one pose to the next if we work this in an incremental fashion. So first and foremost, I'm going to make sure that I have my onion skinning on. It has been turned on because I can see frames before and after, but I'm also going to make sure that there's only one drawing before and after, as opposed to have the three, which can at times lead to confusion. So having the one frame will actually tidy things up a lot more than otherwise would have been available to me. Now, I can see both of them here at frame 2, both the previous one, which is in red, and the next keyframe on, which is in green. So therefore I know that we are going towards the down position. Therefore what I need to do is to kind of make sure that whatever I draw, and don't forget this is a very, very rough drawing, I just want to make sure things are placed in all the right places, that I am going to create an increment that allows me to fill in the next line as well, because I've still got one more drawing to do. So then we are coming off the contact pose towards the down pose. So one of the things that I need to make sure of is that that knee begins to break, and of course we're dealing with arcs here. So if I just draw a rough arc here, I know that the next time that if the knee breaks, the knee needs to kind of hit that posture, going back to the back of the leg, which comes off a little bit more now as the weight lifts off. And I also know that that leg also begins to break at where the knee is, and that foot is going to slap down on the ground like so. So what we have, if I scrub backwards and forwards, is, and the next, this is just a frame before the down pose. So again, just going to skim the next frame on like so. There we have it. And now I can make that leg break to be a bit more comfortable. I've basically gone between the halfway position of the next frame and the previous frame. So that would be the leg there. And if we go by the halfway in between those two, that leg therefore needs to be here. And maybe that's a bit wrong. I'm just going to clear that up. While I'm at it, I might as well tidy some of the other ones up. There we go. And now that line is supposed to go right between there. The toe is still going to be on the ground because the next one is on the ground. So now I can just do this. And what we have now is the animation of the body going forward. And we're going to go towards the passing pose here, and towards the up pose. So again, the same thing happens here. What we're dealing with here is arcs. So I'm just going to draw a really simple line to kind of determine where those arcs are. And now we're going to go towards the passing pose. And so if I just draw again somewhere, I've got 2 frames, so I'm just going to skim somewhere in between those 2 frames, very, very roughly. Drawing isn't important, it's the motion that's important at this stage, and the spacing between those drawings. So now I've crossed, I've done the legs, so I know that this needs to go a little bit, that back leg needs to come a little bit forward. So the knee is going to be roughly here, with that leg off the ground, and the front leg here needs to also be kind of moving backwards, still a little bit bent. There we go. And now just before the passing pose, again splitting the difference between those two. That leg is going to be there somewhere. The other leg is going to be between. That, like so. And of course, again, just between those 2 lines should be the right position. Now if I scrub backwards and forwards between the contact pose and the passing pose, I've got an animation that is fairly smooth, and it kind of makes sense. So now if I go to the next bit there, we're making our way towards the up position. Again, somewhere in between those 2 lines is what I need to do. Roughly. And then that foot there needs to come even further forward. So it comes somewhere in between. Actually, we got 1 more left to do, so perhaps even less, like so. Again, if we just determine that arc there to make sure that our limbs don't grow. That's roughly the 1 limb. Let's just see whether we can tidy some of these lines up so it doesn't confuse us later. And then what we have got to do is the other leg, which is not only straight but going on the up position. So it begins to lift off ever so gently off the heel. You've got that curvature for the heel. And now if you go to the next one, it becomes easier because we just need to split the difference between those 2. And we have that. And the same thing with this leg. It has straightened up. Not only that, but it's beginning to lift off the ground a bit more. And go ahead and fill in the gap between those 2 lines for the body. And that should do it. And if I scrub backwards and forwards between that figure, and now we've got 2 more increments to do to get to our first contact pose, or the second contact pose. So if I go to the next one more time, that's where the knees are. Just want to make sure that I know where those knees are so that my limbs don't grow or foreshorten for no reason. And so just in between those 2, what I need to do is to just ensure that that leg is swinging forward. That leg oops, I'm going the wrong way. That leg is shifting backwards. Sometimes Wacom gets confused. Try that again. In fact, that might be too much of an increment. There might be better. And again, skim. And finally, fill in the gap between those two and between the past frame and the next frame in terms of drawing. And split the difference between those two, which is very little because that leg is already, that thigh is already in place. It's the lower part of the leg that needs to swing forward. Same thing with that one, from red to green. Split the difference. Ooh, bad drawing, but it doesn't matter. It's not so much that as what we want to see what we've got. And to the next contact pose. So I'm going to just copy and paste these into the relevant places, and we'll have a quick look at it to see what we've got in terms of animation. Copy this, place it here. Copy the next one. Place it here, and so on and so forth. Okay, so all the copy and pasting is done now. So I'm just going to have a run through of this. Just let me make sure that I've got just about enough in my timeline here, and let's see what we've got. As we can see, it's working fairly well. It's a little bit fast. We can slow this down a little bit by putting more in betweens here, but as it is now, it seems to be working quite well. So the next step is, of course, for me to redraw it properly in my proper rough, and that would be that. And that's how you would tackle in-betweens.